Well, very much. I want to bring in now our panel for the political fallout or potential. Fox News political contributor Tammy Bruce. She's also the Independent Women's Voice president. Danielle McLaughlin, a liberal commentator, and Liam Carter, GOP communication strategist. Okay, Tammy, your initial thoughts on this?
Well, I think what Mercedes said at the end there is key. You're looking at, first of all, with both men, Manafort and Cohen, the public have been hearing all of this for an extended period of time. It's baked into the nature of what we've thought about them. Both of them clearly have made some very bad decisions. We know who Mr. Cohen is. He was a fixer for the president. Part of doing that as a lawyer is to protect your client, not to involve them. So the argument, of course, when it comes to what the federal government has, if they're going to use someone like that to try to get the president, that would be the only link, is going to be very, very difficult. But all of this, keep in mind, if that was part of the plea deal, to get a plea and to get a lesser sentence means what? That they were after Trump at the beginning. That's the goal, which makes the prosecution itself political. So these are arguments you're going to be hearing. And I think politically the fallout, I don't see Republicans or Democrats being affected by these decisions because they're already entrenched into their positions. Right. And the president, of course, will be making his position quite clear, as he usually does.
But Danielle, is it moot whether or not it was politically motivated, considering the outcome? And considering now that Cohen looks like he's ready to cooperate to some degree, I thought it was strange that he would get up to 5 years and still be a cooperating witness. But what are your thoughts?
You know, ultimately, the acts that underpin this guilty plea were political in nature. The campaign finance violation speaks directly to the concealment of information that would have been damaging to a candidate before the election. So, Tammy, respectfully, I disagree. I don't think this is necessarily baked in because Americans didn't know about this. We've had this news filter out, Cohen's raid, other things. But we have a situation here which I think is historic in some respects. We may have a president who is an unindicted co-conspirator in a campaign finance violation. This is a big deal.
So why is it a big deal? I mean, is it a big deal from an image point of view or legally? If you say unindicted campaign co-conspirator, where are you now taking this off into a potential area, or do you know this is what's going to happen?
No, I don't know what's going to happen. And to Mercedes' points earlier, we haven't seen the allocution, which is what Cohen actually pleaded to in the court of law. I think with midterms so close, this is just another thing for the president to deal with politically, and it's something that Democrats are going to hold on to and say, this isn't draining the swamp.
He had a series of counts that involved tax fraud, $4.1 million. He defrauded the government, the U.S. Treasury, of $1.3 million. That would have been news, might have made page 38 of the Daily News, but obviously it's the detrimental, the silencing two women, detrimental to the campaign. It's early, but as a seasoned pollster, what do you think?
You know, I think the next 72 hours are what's going to really define what happens here. We've seen a lot of crises come out of this administration. We've seen a lot of crises happen over the last 2 years. I mean, there's just one almost right after the other. And the fact that we've had two within 3 minutes of each other is just sort of astounding. But what I think is going to be really important to see, how does the president and his administration respond right now, and how do Democrats launch an attack? What I've seen so far is that Democrats launch attacks that tend to be more on the hysterical side. If I were advising the Democrats right now, I'd say, slow down, guys, let this one breathe and let people think about it. Because you know what? This is a big deal. And this is a big deal to the American people, especially, I think, the Cohen issue, more so than the Manafort. I think you can make the argument, if you wanted to make the argument that Manafort is separate from Donald Trump, even if you wanted to go back and say that, look, now Trump has three candidates, three former employees that are now in jail, you could probably make that argument. But you could also just say, look, there's no ties there necessarily. But Cohen is saying, right, I did this at the direction of the president, and so I think that's going to be a bigger problem.
Well, I think you'd have a lot of employees of another candidate as well in jail if they actually went after her. But this is where the American people, with all the information that they get, the idea that this is a witch hunt, the fact that the president has been constantly targeted in an aggressive fashion. Paul Manafort, as the president's noted, worked for Dole and Reagan. He's been out there for decades, and it was always all okay until right now. I think Mr. Cohen, of course, the president's going to have to deal with his relationship with him, but I think you heard his comments just before he went off to the rally, that he's reiterated the witch hunt dynamic, which...
Give me 1 second, Tammy.
Yes.
I hate to interrupt you, but we do have a statement in from Lanny Davis, attorney for Michael Cohen. I want to share it with the audience. Michael Cohen took this step today so that his family can move to the next chapter. This is Michael fulfilling his promise made on July 2nd to put his family and country first and tell the truth about Donald Trump. Today, he stood up and testified under oath that Donald Trump directed him to commit a crime by making payments to 2 women for the principal purpose of influencing an election. If those payments were a crime for Michael Cohen, then why wouldn't they be a crime for Donald Trump? You've got the legal degree. Tell us why. I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but essentially he's also admitting that maybe this won't be a criminal action against Trump. He's saying it should be.
Well, that goes back to my point about the potential for the president being an unindicted, at this point, co-conspirator. If we have a guilty plea where someone is saying person A directed me to commit a crime, then person A is indelibly involved in that crime. We are just going to have to see how this plays out, but this is certainly not a good day for the president.
I think the president's argument will be the pressure and him putting his family first, looking at life in prison potentially with the nature of what occurred versus a few years, and what you're willing to say in order to get that kind of a dynamic.
But further to that, there may be documents and other things that the prosecution does not rely on, so it's not just going to be Trump versus Cohen.
We got to leave it right there, ladies. Thank you all very much.